Hello everyone. I'm going to make a little series on how to make a leather pouch or leather holder for an item. Today we're going to do it for this Barlow pocket knife that I had refurbished a while ago. Decided I wanted a pouch for it, so I'm going to make it out of leather. So the first thing you're going to need is a block of wood that's exactly the same width, length, and depth of the item you're going to make. You're going to need two of them, okay? This one we'll put aside. I'll show you what you're going to do with that later on. So you're going to want to take that wood, you want to place it on a piece of plywood. This is just 1/2 inch plywood, and you want to get it centered. Make yourself a witness mark that's centered between here and centered here, and if you throw a square on it, it's square to the piece. Okay, you want to just screw it into the back. These are just little drywall screws. I'll disassemble this, so I'll show you how I did it. Very simple. That'll tighten down. Okay, dimensions aren't critical as far as me giving them to you, because it's all going to depend on the item you're making. If you're making a pouch for this, obviously it's going to be longer and thinner. Okay, you're going to want to cut yourself 3 pieces of that same plywood. Okay, and if you throw it on here, you want at least a 1/2 inch on the top or more, half at a minimum. Okay, again, not totally critical. So you're going to have 2 pieces that are going to go for the side, and 1 piece that's going to go on the bottom. The bottom piece should be at least as wide. As you can see, this is a little longer, which is fine. You want to get yourself a couple pieces of the leather that you're going to be using. This is 6-7 ounce vegetable tan leather. You want to place 2 pieces on the side, and you want to take your other 2 pieces, place them here lightly against that, and make yourself a couple witness marks on where that lines up. Okay, one critical item is everything needs to be square to one another. Okay, so we'll move this out of the way for now. Get yourself a little bit of wood glue. Place it on the edge. Okay, we have our witness mark. Get yourself one of these clamps. And make sure you have everything lined up. Give it a little squeeze. Now you're going to cut yourself a couple pieces of hardwood. I'm making this so I can reuse it. If you plan on just doing a one-time thing, you could actually cut this shape out of 1 piece of plywood. It's a little difficult to get perfectly parallel and squared up corners, but it could be done. But the reason why I'm using the hardwood is eventually we're going to end up clamping this together, and the clamps dig into this wood. It's going to get wet because we're doing what's called a wet molding process. So you'd only get 1 or 2 uses out of it before the wood started to really swell up and get messed up. So we're going to be using this hardwood to go on top. Okay. I have holes that are pre-drilled in here, and you want to make this to be at least a ½ inch from the top, and I'll show you why when we get to that step. Okay, I'm not liking that little space there. I'm going to loosen this up and reclamp it. There you go. Got some even squeeze out there. And again, make sure that that's nice and flat. Okay, you should have a perfect 45-degree angle in this corner. Get yourself some glue. Place this down. You can use that second block, stick that in the corner, press it in, and press this against it, because you're going to want this surface here to be nice and flush with the two pieces of wood. Give that some pressure, get it started. Get yourself some brads. You don't want the brad to be able to go through the top piece of hardwood and into the plywood, but not come out the bottom. Get a couple of these in here. Really good idea to pre-drill the hardwood. This is actually maple, and it'll bend nails trying to go through it. And use your block. Make sure everything is squared up and lined up. Give it a couple taps. I'll show you the rest of it goes together, and then I'll nail them all in. So now you're going to take your second piece of wood. You have your witness marks here. You do that same procedure. You're going to glue it here. You're going to place this on top. Put your block inside. Make sure it's all squared up. Okay. Then you're going to get yourself another little piece of wood just as a filler. Okay, that's going to go in here. It doesn't have to meet in there perfectly. It's just going to be used for the clamping. Then you're going to get yourself another piece that you cut that fits across the top like that. Okay, again, pre-drilled holes, fits across the top. Again, if it was a little longer, it really wouldn't matter. Okay. That's what that's going to look like. You need to glue it all down, nail it all in, and when I get done with that and the glue is dried, I will be back. Okay, I'm back. So here's what you end up with. So next step you're going to want to do is make sure that it fits. Place that on there. Get your couple pieces, actually I have it upside down. Get a couple pieces of the leather that you have. Make sure that they fit in there, so you're good. Okay. Next thing you want to do is get yourself some sandpaper. You can use some double stick tape. Put it on a nice flat piece of wood. Okay. Make sure that these edges are perfectly flush. If they're not, you just take the sandpaper and go over it. Okay. The next thing you want to do is you're going to want to ease these edges a little bit. Okay, you don't want to get too aggressive, just a little bit. Break that hard corner. Give it a little sanding. If you don't have a block, you can certainly do it by hand with a little piece of sandpaper. Okay. Break all those edges off of that. You're going to do the same thing on the top and bottom of this and these two sides. Okay, take your sandpaper, You don't want to round it over too much, just a little bit. I'm not sure if that's going to show up in the camera, but it's just very slight to break that edge off. You're going to want to do the same thing to the piece, the extra piece that matches that. Okay, give yourself a little arrow right here. Okay, so you'll know that that's the top, and I'll show you where that comes into play later on. And get your sandpaper, ease these edges here, 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 and here. Don't worry about the top, and don't worry about the bottom. Okay, now you're going to cut yourself a piece of leather. Okay, it's going to be approximately that size, right? You want it to be a little bit bigger than the actual base that you have. And again, this is 6-7 ounce vegetable tan leather. And you want to get yourself some type of vessel. Okay, this is just a wonton soup container. Fill it up with warm water and soak your leather in it. As you can see, there's tons of little bubbles coming up. That's the water getting absorbed in there. So let that sit in there a little bit. In the interim, get yourself a bunch of clamps. You're going to need lots of clamps. You'll see that this starts to get very soft and pliable. Okay. That bubble's pretty much stopped, so we'll take it out. Get your mold. Place it down and start to form it with your hands. Press down. It's very thick leather. Okay, you're going to want this to be flush on the top. Start to press it down. Be careful you don't get your fingernails in here. Your fingernails will it'll leave a mark. They're very hard to get out. And if you do get it out, you could rub it, and you'll get most of it out. But just be careful, because it will leave a mark. Okay. At this point, you can see it's starting to mold. All right, give it another little soak in the water. Just a few seconds. Take it out. Start pressing it down. And this is why they call it wet molding. Okay, here comes the tricky part. So you're going to get your top that you built. You're going to get it on here. You're going to start to press it down. You can use a little rubber mallet. Start to get it going. You're going to want to make sure that it's nice and flat. Okay, if it's not, you can always pop this off. Get it down there. This part here is always the hardest part. Okay, don't worry about if it starts to curl up like that. Let's get this on there again. Now, you don't want to make yourself a little wedge like this, okay? And that's where this piece comes into play. You don't want this wedge to fit in there, and I'll show you as we start getting it down the reason for that, okay? So start getting this as tight as you can. get your clamps. When you put your clamps on, try to get them close to the edge. Start tightening them down. As it gets tighter, some of the other ones are going to start to fall off. Put them back on. Okay, this one a little tighter. Okay, as you can see, there's a space down there. Okay, this is where your wedge is going to come in. Get your wedge, place it in there. Start tapping on it. What that's going to do is that's going to draw this that way. Okay, you could also tap it down there. Hopefully you can see that it closed up that gap. Okay, you're going to want to press down the leather at this point with your fingers, and you continue to tighten up your clamps. You can never have enough clamps. Or I should say, never have too many clamps. Okay, got it all tightened up. Okay, about as tight as it can go. You'll start to see that it's sticking out the edge. You got good contact between all sides. Give it another little crank down. Give it a little rub. Get that nice and flat. As you can see, nice and flat. Okay, at this point, you need to set this aside to dry. Okay, this could take anywhere from 24 to 36 hours. It's all going to depend on the temperature and the humidity where you leave it. You might be tempted to throw this in an oven. That can be done at about 180 degrees. You know, with the door open, it'll dry it out faster, but I don't recommend that. It tends to make it a little bit brittle. and distorts it a little bit. So just let it naturally dry. Put it somewhere, like I said, for 24 to 36 hours. You'll be able to feel it on the end here when it's dry. Like right now, if I squeeze that, you barely see it, but it's very pliable and still extremely wet. So we'll be back when this dries up, and we'll continue on with the project. Thanks for watching.